We cheer you as you go. Our honor defend, we will fight to the end for Ohio. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football on our Ohio State channel. The first time we've gone live here since last fall with some of our Ohio State Buckeyes live shows that we bring you each and every week. Those are on Wednesdays. Wednesdays at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Wednesdays at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Mark it down. We go live on the main channel. So if you're following us here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, Ohio State, understand that we've got a main college football channel. We cover as many teams as we can get to. You're going to find more video content there than I'm going to guarantee just about any place, anywhere on college football analysis, discussion, debate, analysis, the very best. That's our aim. That's our goal. That's our mission. So join us on the main channel for Ohio State Buckeyes Live. That's every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And then we provide your specific topic segments here on this channel. So stay subscribed right here, but join us on the main channel for the Buckeyes Live show every Wednesday, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And if you love college football overall, for all the shows and all the topics and segments and the call-in shows as well. We are going to take your calls. We're also going to go through the comments tonight on our Ohio State channel. So all Ohio State talk, that's all we're talking here. Of course, this is our Buckeyes channel, so we're talking just Ohio State football. So for those of you who are not familiar with me specifically, because the segments that we post here feature Steve Hellwagon from Bucknuts, 247 Sports, Kevin Noon from Buckeye Grove on Rivals, and Tony Erdogan from Buckeye Scoop. And I host a show, Ohio State Buckeyes Live, but don't do a ton of analysis there. So just to let you know who I am, my name's Mark Rogers. I've been in the media industry since 1991 as a news anchor reporter, sports director at a CBS station for 9 years at a CBS station in Mississippi, 19 years as production operations manager at ESPN, various stops along the way, play-by-play, so forth and so on. But on YouTube here, covering college football for the last number of years, and we started this Ohio State channel, I would guess about 2 to 3 years ago. We started this Ohio State channel. And just to be transparent with you, this is a repurposing or reformatting of the Ohio State content that we provide at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, our main channel. Well, you want to stay here for 2 reasons. You want to stay here first and foremost because you can sort through all the other stuff that you don't want to see. You just want to focus on the Buckeyes. You're going to get it right here. And you're going to know where to go to the video on the quarterback battle, the recruiting conversation, whatever it is, whatever the topic of choice. Also, you want to help us build the channel. You want to help us thrive right here covering Ohio State football. Also, now that we've reached 1,000 subscribers, and thank you so much for that. That must have happened sometime last fall. And we're pushing 2,000 subscribers right now. So tell your friends, tell your family, your Buckeye friends that we're here. Is that we're going to provide unique content here by the way of these type of shows where we take your calls, we respond to your comments from the live chat, and also the videos that we have here. So I'm going to go through the videos. I'm going to go through the comments of the videos. I'm going to run through the live chat, and then I'm going to post the call-in number, which is 860-325-3687. So I appreciate everyone that's here right now. Cheryl's here. Hey, Cheryl. Good to see you. Don't necessarily need to moderate tonight. Just take it easy, kick back, enjoy yourself. Cheryl is our foremost, without question, top of the line, top of the list moderator over on the main channel for all our live shows. And she seems to show up just about every time and carries the weight of the world on her shoulders. So if you would like to moderate, help us monitor the live chat, then just let me know. Hit me up at MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. Also, again, our Ohio State Buckeyes live show. We want that baby to explode. It's just phenomenal insight from Ohio State beat writers, Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts, Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Scoop, Kevin Noon, Buckeye Grove every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And, of course, Wednesday is National Signing Day. Not a ton of news from Ohio State camp. The 2021 class basically locked it down, but we'll review the class. We'll talk Ohio State football. We always have a great time, have plenty to talk about. This past show, there was a lot of talk about Rajon Davis, who has since committed to USC. Eli Ricks, the corner out of LSU, 4 picks in his freshman season of 2020, possibly coming to Columbus. And the quarterback battle, the other position battles. We also provide insight and analysis here from Pat Murphy of Bucknuts. So, Cheryl, appreciate it. Got Jamie Strawn on the line. Good to see you here. And Cancel Enemy. Good to see both of you. Browns fan, right there. So I'm just here to basically say, hey, Buckeye fans, we're going to provide some live content here for us to concentrate on Ohio State football. A number of people are probably subscribed here that are not on the main channel. And I'd also like to respond to viewer comments. So I'm going to get right to that right now. Keeping in mind that just in the last few days, Tate Martell, former Buckeye, transferred to Miami, is now transferring out of Miami. Who knows where he's going to land? The former 5-star out of Bishop Gorman has really shown that he's not capable big-time college quarterback. Maybe there's a group of 5 spot for him somewhere. Also, Justin Fields, much talk and debate about his NFL draft status. Of course, his 2020 season was good enough to earn him Offensive Player of the Year honors in the Big Ten, but the downers against Northwestern and somewhat against Indiana. Then the phenomenal showing against Clemson. The Alabama game could be debated. I would debate. He was banged up, and he was running for his life much of the game. He lost his running attack in the form of Trey Sermon. Tough go for Justin Fields. We'll see where he gets drafted, but I would still think that the New York Jets should draft Justin Fields, although Zach Wilson out of BYU, the quarterback, is being talked about as a possible second quarterback selected. Got Sweetie on the line. Good to see you. Appreciate it. I'm going to go through some of the recent comments that have come into the channel in response to many of the videos we've just posted. All right, so we got BBB Murr, who sees a big problem in the next few years with all teams because you're basically combining the last 2 recruiting classes eligibility-wise. We will have 40-plus freshmen next year. It may not be as big of a problem for Ohio State because a lot of them leave. Okay, it's not going to be a problem because everybody's going to be in the same boat. And this is a free year for those players that decided to take that extra year of eligibility. They're not scarfing up scholarships under a limited basis. So the scholarships will be extended to those players, of course, that will be able to play an extra year. Navy Thomas, good to see you. Transfer portal is now crap, needs to end. Navy Thomas, not a big fan of the transfer portal. I got to say I'm not as well. I loved it when you knew that your college football player for your school, for your team, was always going to be, in this case, a Buckeye. Always going to be a Buckeye. Wasn't going to go. I forget what player I was reading about just the other day. He's been to 4 schools. He's played for 4 schools. Jamie, Justin Fields has problems processing the field. That is the knock. That's the knock against him, and that's not a good thing in the NFL. I don't think it's as critical as it once was in the NFL. I think they help out these quarterbacks so much more than they used to with the RPO game, with the run-pass option, with the being a running quarterback. You know, you don't have the Drew Bledsoes of the world standing back in the pocket, dissecting a defense, going through a bunch of reads. RG3 had a phenomenal rookie season before he got hurt in the NFL, and they basically gave him one read. They gave him a defensive end read on the RPO, and then he basically hit the guy that was open, hit the first shot, or he took off and ran. David Greensheet on the line to see you. So we'll be taking calls. I'll post a number here, but I also wanted to go through our viewer comments that are coming in. Anything decent here? Phil Stamper wants a more athletic linebacker. We had a Senior Bowl today involving 4 Buckeyes on defense. Senior Bowl today. That included Jonathan Cooper. He actually made the first play of the day, had a tackle for loss against Jamie Newman, the former Wake, Georgia quarterback. So Jonathan Cooper showed up with 1.5 tackles for loss in the day. He had a number of pressures. He also got where the block go, as he did this past season. So Jonathan Cooper trying to make a name for himself, very important for him. Tough Borland had a pass breakup, almost had a pick, a diving pick. Tough Borland, a tackle for loss for Tough. Justin Hilliard had a nice day with 4 tackles for the national team in the Senior Bowl, a half tackle for loss, and also Baron Browning, who's probably the one guy in defense, in addition to Sean Wade, that could be a first, possibly into the second-day selection. The rest of these guys are hoping to get drafted. Cooper, Borland, Hilliard, hoping to get drafted, probably will, but near the end, Baron Browning, the one guy that's got, for me, Baron Browning had a tremendous end to the 2019 season. He really started to play well at the conclusion of 2019 into the playoffs. Justin Hilliard, we saw start to make plays this year as a former 5-star who I don't want to say was a bust. He was hurt quite a bit, but he had a disappointing career and then made plays in 2020. Justin Hilliard turned out to be a playmaker for this team. And I would say aside from the 2 tackles, it's arguably the best Ohio State defender in the meaningful games. Got 12 folks on the line. Good to see everybody here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. As explained to a number of you that will probably watch the video later, for many of you, we get a good draw on here on the Ohio State channel. So as we do some of these live shows over here, hopefully we will build a bit of a following in addition to the almost 2,000 subscribers we've got here at the Ohio State channel, but never get to see us live for those who are only subbed here. Want to remind you, over on the main channel, just look up the Voice of College Football if you're not familiar. On the main channel, we do an Ohio State show every Wednesday, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. This Wednesday is National Signing Day, and I understand it's not as big a deal as it typically is. National Signing Day is nuts. About 90% of the players are gone, off the board, signed in December. Still, I went through the top 120 to 150 players in the nation, and I still shot videos on about 8 to 10 of them that were still not committed. So there's still some tremendous players out there, including, of course, Buckeye fans, you're going to know, JT Tuimoloau. I'll get it. It has nothing to do with the pronunciation. It's actually remembering how does this kid spell his name. It's Tuimoloau. Tuimoloau out of Washington. Still deciding. The Buckeyes looked safe, but he likes Alabama. He likes Washington. He has never been to, I believe, any of those schools, excluding Oregon. Oregon is the only campus Tuimoloau has visited. So regardless of the name brand of the football program, you got to think it would be a difficult decision to go somewhere you've never been. And that's a situation that's facing many of these kids. And I don't know really how to put a metric on it. I would know how to put a metric on it. I don't know that it's going to be done. It would be an exhaustive process to determine in this pandemic year of the 2021 recruiting class, are players more likely to stay closer to home? That would be an exhaustive project to try to track all the players versus what has been the norm. So again, I appreciate everybody being here. Cheryl, what did Jamie Newman do in college but quit? How is he going to make it in the NFL? Yeah, Jamie Newman in 2018 became the Wake Forest starting quarterback with about 5 games left in the season. That must have been John Wolford got hurt, who is now vying for the starting job with the Los Angeles Rams. Got hurt late in the season, but John Wolford went from a lightly regarded Wake Forest quarterback to a 35 touchdown thrower to battling for a starting job in the NFL with a #1 pick. Anyway, enough of Wolford. He got hurt in 2018. Jamie Newman took over. And what was a bit strange to me is that in 2018, Jamie Newman played really well. And really well in the clutch. The first time he really got significant playing time, he led a victory for Wake as an upset, underdog Thursday night opponent at a top 25 North Carolina State team with Ryan Finley and so forth, those guys, and led a comeback in the last 2 minutes to win that game. He led a comeback to win the bowl game against Memphis. He had another tremendous clutch performance in 2018. So he had like 3 comeback victories of note. And then in 2019, Jamie Newman put up nice numbers, Cheryl. But if you look at who he put them up against, he really padded his stats against bad teams. And Wake plays a lot of bad teams, especially out of conference. And he did not play well against good teams. Granted, Wake Forest taking on Clemson is not a fair fight. And so the quarterback's going to be overmatched. But Jamie Newman doesn't strike me as anything special. And take your opinion on whether he quit on his new team this year. Navy Thomas, ranking Penn State football's best quarterback options in the transfer portal. Guess we'll have to look at that. Maybe Thomas don't know exactly what you're talking about there. Sean Clifford is still at Penn State. Will Levis did leave. Will Levis is gone. I was starting to remind everyone that Wednesday is National Signing Day. About 90% of the players are gone, off the board, signed in December. But we are going to go crazy, as we always do on National Signing Day. We did in December. We're going to go live starting at 10 a.m. And basically, we're going to crank out a team about every half hour and just go live, go live, go live, go live. I've already set up team reports coming in from, oh my goodness, North Carolina, Indiana, Ohio State, Michigan, UCLA, Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, and a host of others. Oklahoma comes to mind as well, Notre Dame, and others. So all day on Wednesday, we'll be coming live to you. And so just bear with us. I'm not going to just stay live all day. And the reason I'm not doing that is because I want the North Carolina section just to post as one video, and then the Wisconsin to just post, and so forth. Each team just post as a separate video. So I don't want to go with one great big live stream all day. So if you're going to hang with us, just recognize that if we do a 10 a.m. and we rip off 20, 25, 30 minutes with a guest, then we're just stay with us on the channel. We're going to keep just pumping out live shows all day on Wednesday. And then at 8 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesday night, we will have a live call-in show. That will be our next, unless I decide to go live on Tuesday. I'll be back at home Tuesday. Go live Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. All right. Brian Hill, have we figured out if we are getting a co-defensive coordinator or are we promoting within? So Brian, I don't know if you heard me mention our Buckeyes Live show that airs every Wednesday live at 2 o'clock Eastern time on the main channel. We talked to Gerdeman, Hellwagon, and Noon, our Ohio State beat writers, and as of last Wednesday, so about 4 days ago, didn't know. And I scoured online to find out if we knew anything. As of a few minutes ago, no, we don't know. You have a preference. I think Ohio State is looking to really examine its defensive performance, to really examine what it's doing wrong, really examine scheme and fit. Like we talked about the other day, I think most defensive guys, defensive coordinator type candidates, they've got a philosophy. They've got a base defense that they love. They believe in a defensive system. Whether that's a 4-3, a 3-4, 4-2-5, whatever it is, they believe in something as being the best defense to play against the offenses we see now. But then you also have to consider, okay, personnel. And it's a pretty bad statement, sad statement to make that Ohio State kept linebackers on the field and defensive backs off the field in the national championship game against that offense, the best offense in college football, because the defensive backfield personnel was just not up to the challenge. There were guys on the field that should not have been on the field, and it was evident. And so when it should have been a heavy defensive back, defensive line personnel grouping for Ohio State in the national championship game, and they had to put linebackers out there that weren't capable of covering. And I'm not even just talking about the blown coverage where Tough Borland's chasing Devontae Smith. That was bad enough. But consistently, Ohio State was playing too many linebackers and not enough DBs on the field against Alabama. Admittedly so. So that is paramount, that gets fixed. And some of it will get fixed because guys got hurt even before the season started. Cam Brown, notably. And Eli Ricks, we talked about him from LSU. Now, I don't know that he's leaving, but there's much speculation about him being interested in Ohio State, and that would be a phenomenal pickup for the Buckeyes, to pick up Eli Ricks. But I cannot imagine that Ohio State will not be improved in the secondary in 21. They have to be. All right, folks, who else? Dalton Moore. I hope the Big Ten lays off on its restrictions as we get closer to the season. Amen to that. The Lee Smith channel, we got smoked against Bama like we were Rutgers. 2 co-defensive coordinators don't work. I talked about that too, and Lee Smith channel probably heard me when we talked about that on our Buckeye show live Wednesday. Unless you are really, really specific in your role definition, and Ryan Day says, co-defensive coordinator A, this is what you're in charge of. Co-defensive coordinator B, this is what you're in charge of. And there's clear separation, clear understanding there. I don't think that's the way to go either. Because regardless of how well you define those roles, there's going to be overlap, and there are going to be things that come up where there's going to be friction and tension. And you can call guys co-defensive coordinators. And I know Kerry Coombs had the play calling duties, and he was the defensive coordinator versus Madison being co-defensive coordinator. But we saw it with Schiano and Grinch. two tremendous coaches separately, put them together, and you can't have. And I'm not saying that there was fighting between the two guys. I don't know. I just think you need a guy in charge. Need a guy in charge. George can only listen. He's driving down the road. George, we appreciate you being in here, supporting our Ohio State channel as a Gators fan, of course, George. Jamie Strong, do you believe in Coombs as a DC? Man, that's a great question. Do I believe in Kerry Coombs as a DC? Can you give me a year to answer that question? Oh, man, I would love to see this next year play out with not necessarily a highly rated defensive backfield, but at least guys will be coming back and will be Ohio State should be at full strength. I am looking up Kerry Coombs' resume. Just to get reacquainted here. Jeff Hafley was a big loss. Jeff Hafley was a big loss. Kerry Coombs' stops in college have been Cincinnati defensive back coach 07 to 11. That was just after Mark Antonio left. And then he was the, assistant head coach in DB. So that was from 07 to 11 at Cincinnati. Then he came to the Buckeyes 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Yep, 5 years there with Ohio State as cornerbacks coach. He really just had the 2 years after he was with the Buckeyes for 6 in the NFL with the Tennessee Titans in 18 and 19, and now defensive coordinator and works with the DBs. Considering that the defensive backs were the Achilles heel and the defense as a whole had underachieved, it's tough to get excited about Kerry Coombs having not been the defensive coordinator anywhere prior to this. Brian Hill agreed. The secondary seems to be the problem, and we just need speed at the linebacker position. I think they worked on that speed at the linebacker position, but it's still not good enough. Understand with the change in offensive football that playing linebacker is so tough now. So incredibly tough. You've got to be stout against the run, then you've got to be able to run all over the place. So it's tough to find guys like that. It's tough to find guys that are stout against the run and can hit like a ton of bricks, but can also run. It's a unique combination of skill sets. Dalton Moore, I'd say after this season, we will truly find out if Coombs is made for the DC role or just as a secondary coach like he used to be. I'm a little bit leery when somebody elevates to this position as a defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator at this level. And it's not like Kerry Coombs had the job at Cincinnati, then he had the long run with the Buckeyes for 6 seasons. Then he went to a Group of 5 school and was the defensive coordinator like Marcus Freeman over the last several seasons at Cincinnati. Marcus Freeman showing that he can produce as a defensive coordinator at the very highest of Group of 5 levels. Then he gets the Notre Dame position. Kerry Coombs hasn't shown that. Jamie Strong, Ohio State should load up on defensive analysts. Well, it couldn't hurt. It couldn't hurt. Roger Smith, I agree with your comments in the defense analysis, objectives, and fit. So let's see, again, our recent comments on the Buckeyes. see what else we've got here. Got Mike 3883. I see what you're saying about the stacked wide receiver group for now and the future, but I'm not a fan of the speculation of specific individuals just based off playing time and nothing else. It doesn't sound like you meant anything by it, but implying in general versus calling out someone is different because you're unfairly attaching that I don't want to get up mentality to players who have made the team and been on the team. So there was speculation. Or just a discussion that we had with Buckeyes Live where our guys were talking about and actually named a couple players on the Ohio State roster that are seniors going into their senior seasons or maybe an extra year. And they haven't played. They just haven't played much at all. And what's their incentive to go through these winter workouts? And, they can miss the winter workouts, still hit the transfer portal, and then go somewhere else. I would love to see the timelines and the deadlines on the transfer portal. If anybody knows that, please put it out in the chat. I would just think that, let's say for the 2021 season, the first game is the first Saturday of September, that there should be a deadline for entering the transfer portal to be eligible to play in 2021. And I've never seen that addressed. I've never seen that discussed, never seen any dates. If an Ohio State player, for example, finishes out this spring semester, works out with the football team, preparing for the 2021 season, even goes to spring practice, finishes out the semester in May, and then decides sometime in July, I'm going to go to Kansas State. There's got to be a deadline to be eligible for the 2021 season. I can't think because of scholarship limitations, unless a scholarship player would leave Ohio State and say, I'm going to go to Kansas State without a scholarship in 2021, that there would not be a deadline there. I've really tried to come up with an answer for the 58-24 loss in the national championship game. 52, Buckeye fans, 52-24 loss to Alabama in the national championship game. Because I tend to not just take a score verbatim and say, okay, Alabama beat Ohio State 52-24. They're clearly miles better, 4 touchdowns better. Well, it was one football game. Okay. We know that if two teams played 10 times, there would be different results. One team would prove to be better over those 10 games. And does it matter? No, they only get to play one. But I'm trying to figure out, what is the gap between Alabama and Ohio State? Is there a gap? There seems to be. It seems quite obvious from the score of that game, but there are other factors involved. Because when I look at the personnel on those two teams, for this past season, not just in this game, I see one clear difference. And even though Alabama struggled against the pass against Ole Miss and Florida, they did not struggle against anyone else in pass defense. And Ole Miss and Florida threw the ball as well as anybody in the country outside of Alabama, pretty much. And that's where the Tide struggled. But their secondary's loaded. Ohio State secondary was the worst since fill in the blank. I don't know. Ohio State secondary was its worst since maybe 2013. I would say that the 2013 secondary played better than this one did. I don't know. This is the worst Ohio State secondary since And I'm not talking about the star ratings or the recruiting rankings. Based on that, it should have been a stellar secondary. It should have been still the best secondary in the Big Ten, but it wasn't. The worst Ohio State secondary since the late 80s, early 90s. So my point is that was where I saw a huge difference between the two teams. Ohio State had the better quarterback, but not by much. Mac Jones is phenomenal. He's a tremendous player. He may turn out to be a really good pro. So slight edge to the Buckeyes at quarterback, but most of that slight edge couldn't be utilized because Justin Fields was banged up. Offensive line, Alabama's offensive line really pass protected well in the national championship game. Ohio State's did a fair job. Justin Fields was under more pressure consistently than Mac Jones was. In the running game, both defensive fronts shut down the run, primarily shut down the run. So I'm going to say that the offensive edge went to Alabama slightly. And I thought Ohio State had arguably the best offensive line in the country going into the game. Wide receivers, for as great as Ohio State's wide receivers are, will include the tight ends. And I would say that Ohio State's wide receivers are probably the best unit for the 2020 team, the best unit on the field, best unit on the team. Wide receivers, defensive line, offensive line for the Buckeyes. For as good as they are, they're probably the second best unit in the country to Alabama. Running backs, Najee Harris in a class by himself. Trey Sermon, great. Great performances. I don't want to call him a great player. Great performances in the previous 2 to 3 games. Michigan State, Northwestern, Clemson. But Najee Harris, another level. Defensive line, I will give the Buckeyes the edge along the defensive front against Alabama. Ohio State linebackers, better than 18 and maybe even better than the 2019 edition. But the linebackers at Alabama, better. Secondary, not even close. When I posted a video running down the recruiting rankings and really dissecting the 2 deep for each squad, there was a slight edge for Bama, but not considerably. I think Ohio State got outcoached in that game. I think the secondary was such a glaring, horrible weakness against the team that was the worst team to be lining up against, having that be your horrible weakness. That was a big problem as we take our first call here. And I apologize for not posting the call-in number. It is 860-325-3687. I'll get it to the screen here in just a second. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Did you move?
Did I move?
Well, it's like a different part of your house or something, because I'm used to you being in that location. With,
I gotcha. No, did not move.
All that good stuff.
No moving for me right now. I did not move.
Okay.
How you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing well. I was going through Mark Rogers' withdrawal there for the last few days.
Yeah, we haven't been live since Wednesday. It actually seems like it's been longer than that, but I've been out and about and all over the place, so we'll be back at it here real soon.
Yeah, I wanted to give you a call. I was listening to kind of some of your comments. I saw some of the highlights of the Senior Bowl today. I didn't get a chance to watch all of it. Did you watch most of it, or?
I did not watch the game.
Some of it?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, kind of my feelings about the Ohio State linebackers, kind of in this draft. Well, first of all, I think Cooper has potential to be a solid pro. I think he's going to get drafted, but I don't know if he's necessarily a difference maker at the next level. But I think he could be a solid contributor. As far as their linebackers go, I think the one guy that has potential is possibly Justin Hilliard. He did look good as the season came along. Borland, to me, always seemed like would have been better off playing in the era with the I formation and split backfield. it doesn't seem to be as good in space as some of the linebackers are going to need to play at the next level, especially with where the game is at right now. I think Warner could be okay, but again, I think he's a later round draft pick. I tell you what, the one guy that they never used properly was a really good pass rusher was Baron Browning, who I also think could have potential at the next level, depending on what defense he gets in and which team he catches on with. I mean, of those linebackers, which one could you see having maybe the best pro career, Mark?
Oh, I think Baron Browning's the best player out of the three in a consistent manner. Baron Browning, I believe, if you go about halfway through 2019 and go for the last season and a half, has been, a all-conference type player. He's been a really, really good player. Justin Hilliard, though, to your point, and I believe I made a similar point, I think he flashes more. I think he flashes some of that five-star talent, and he did over the last half of the season.
Right. Well, his problem has always been health. That's why he's been at Ohio State for like 20 years now, it seems like. But, and I think that's the thing that, obviously, is going to prevent him from going, pretty high in the draft. They'll probably take a look at those medical reports, and he's had a lot of injury problems. But again, you're right. He flashed it towards the end of the year. Obviously, if he stays on the field, I think he's shown he could be a productive player. But, it's interesting. Sean Wade could have left early last year and played him and been a first-round draft pick, right, Mark? And then this year, he's a third or maybe fourth round? Maybe he might slip into the second. What are your thoughts?
It's really curious what happened to him. To your point, because he was really solid in 2019, and he was playing on a defense that was pitching a shutout with 4 minutes left in the first half against a future number one draft pick at quarterback. And then after that play, he comes back after opting out initially in 2021. And I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but it's just with all that incentive that he seemed to be as motivated as anybody to come back and play, that he really wanted to play that badly. And I'm not saying that he didn't, but because sometimes the performance and the results don't always equal the effort. Maybe just playing such a passive style of defense was not good for him. But how many times, especially in that Alabama game, and I'll also say that the Penn State game comes to mind as seeing this a number of times, just giving up 8, 10, 12-yard sideline completions, and then seeing a corner who had just bailed on the play, just come up and give it a push out of bounds, or maybe not even make contact with the wide receiver, and just to play that passively and just have it in your head that entire game that you're just going to give up throw after throw after throw after throw. I just don't think it's psychologically is a great place to put a player.
Well, you know what it was, Mark, and a lot of analysts said it. He was far better off playing in the slot, as a slot corner than he was playing on the outside. I mean, he did that bail technique where he'd play off. He wasn't very good at playing press man and getting up on a receiver and getting a jam and getting his hands on receivers. He would just play off, and he'd give up the the underneath stuff, and that was kind of his MO. But it was one thing when he was playing on the secondary when he only had to be the third corner, because he's got Arnett and Akuda, next to him, and now he's got to play on the outside where he's not used to it and just never seemed to adapt. Although, you know what, though? There's a lot of need in the NFL. Somebody had pointed this out for slot corners. Yep. So he could find a home, in that second round. I mean, corners are at a premium nowadays, so especially with the passing game being where it's at.
Yeah, and it only takes one team to say that we love his measurables, and we can teach him and get his confidence back, and we can work with him. We love his measurables, and it takes just one team to have that attitude. So.
Hey, I wanted to throw this out there to you, Mark. I've been Mel Kiper and some of the other draft analysts have had Zach Wilson ahead of Justin Fields in the draft. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yep.
Just when you break them down, because you've seen I've seen a little bit of Zach Wilson. I haven't seen a lot. How do you compare the two? Could you see a world where Wilson ends up being a better pro than Justin Fields?
If the knock against Justin Fields about him not surveying the field well and seeing what's there in front of him and anticipating throws and being able to see what, because I know you know this, again, David, from watching so much football as you do, that it's astonishing when they will show certain camera angles, especially from behind the quarterback, where you will see where the receiver and the secondary are when that ball comes out of his hand.
Right.
In a lot of throws, especially once you elevate to the NFL level, just the ability to anticipate the window opening, it just takes a special ability, and it obviously takes a ton of practice and rapport between quarterback and wide receiver. I don't think there's any question that Justin Fields can throw the football better than Zach Wilson.
Okay.
But if he, and you know how things, if one person, let's say one scout or a small group of scouts made that one comment about Justin Fields, you know how that can become in terms of online and talking points, can just blow out of proportion, be blown out of proportion by types like myself. Just, and then suddenly everybody's talking about Justin Fields can't read defenses, and maybe it wasn't that egregious. But I think he does need to work on that. I don't think there's any question he needs to work on that. That it's not a strength. I don't know how much of a weakness it is, but it's not a strength.
Well, you know what it is, Mark? A lot of dual threat quarterbacks that I've seen in the past, and he did a little bit of this against Clemson when he would go to his check down. He threw a couple check down passes to Sermon. And that's really the natural progression. Number one, he does tend to hold the football too long. And so, and that tends to hurt him. And a lot of the sacks he has taken over the last couple of years has been when he's held the ball too long. And he's had some issues against the blitz in the past. The other thing, too, like I said, though, he doesn't go, like, one of the best things that an NFL quarterback does, and I always notice this about Tom Brady, is his willingness to go dump the ball off to the running back if, let's say, first, second read aren't available. Go to his check down. I don't see as much about, that from Justin Fields. Although, you know what, to be fair, Mark, I don't see that from a lot of college quarterbacks. Because not a lot of college teams utilize their backs in the passing game. Some teams do. Some of the more elite offenses do, but not as much as they do in the NFL. And I think that's the thing that you're right. It's that next, thing for him is just going through his progressions, going through, to his check downs, and maybe not holding the ball on, too long, or kind of my big concerns about him. Is that basically how you see it as well?
Sure. Yep. But I think he's a more talented thrower of the football than Zach Wilson is.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what I've seen from Wilson, he's got a good arm. The one thing that always impressed me with Fields is he's pretty accurate. He's got a really good arm. Obviously we know he's mobile, so he's got the athletic ability. So, I mean, I think all those components are there for him to be successful. It's just those other things that I think would give teams some pause. Hey, I wanted to ask you about it. I didn't get a chance to ask you about the Tennessee situation. What did you think about the hire, by the way?
So it's hard to believe that Danny White would leave UCF as athletic director, and he would go on a national search, and he would just so happen to choose his head coach from UCF. You got to think that when he took the job,
right,
that was in the back of his mind, if not the forefront of his mind, that this is what I'm doing, regardless of what we find out, regardless of who's interested. This is going to be my choice, and I don't have any issues with the choice, but I just hope that it wasn't predetermined and that he didn't do the process justice and didn't do the Tennessee fan base and the school justice by honestly going through the process of selecting a coach and surveying the field.
You know what? Here's the thing, Mark. I'm going to throw out a few names to you, and just want to get your thoughts on it. I thought, Clay Travis is a big Tennessee fan, had mentioned that they, might be looking at a few of the other SEC coaches. I don't know. Did Freeze or did I don't know the other SEC coach that I'm thinking of, but did the other former SEC coaches pass on it, or did they even go after?
I didn't hear specifically about Freeze, but somebody fairly credible person or two threw out a pretty crazy number of how many coaches passed on the Tennessee job, like 8, something in that range.
Right.
I'm trying to think who. I was just trying to think who else would have been under consideration from the SEC. Maybe Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, that was the other name that was escaping me, Mark, was maybe Malzahn or Freeze. Uncle Lou told me that Franklin interviewed for the job. Did you hear that?
I didn't hear that, but he was brought up in a few conversations I had. But it's worth a listen. But that's a downgrade for him. I don't know why.
Oh yeah.
He would leave, but there's certainly nothing wrong with it. It's not a huge downgrade, and nothing wrong with kicking the tires and see what they have to say.
Right. I agree. Well, obviously you're on the side with Ohio State trying to, get the Big Ten title game, or you want to go to the SEC where you've got to first get through, Georgia or Florida, and then, get to the SEC title game and have to face Alabama. So, it's definitely a tougher road to hoe there. And he's done a solid job at Penn State. I think it's a big year for him, especially after having a terrible year this year. Kind of like a proving year. It'd be interesting to see if he can bounce back. But, I had heard that. I didn't know if that was even a possibility. And I agree with you. I think it's a downgrade for him.
Yeah, again, not an enormous one, but a downgrade.
Right. Hey, last thought, Mark. I want to throw out an early playoff prediction and get your thought. I was thinking about this. I already threw it out to Uncle Lou. I'm going to throw it out to you. I have got my early playoff predictions, repeat of 2017 playoff. Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma. What do you think?
I think outside of the obvious, and that's when two teams from the same conference go to a playoff, then that means one of them will have already lost a game for sure, and they're going to be downgraded to a certain extent because of that. That those are the 4 schools that seem to be the best 4 coming into the season with the best combination of talent and proven commodities on the roster. Ohio State would be right there with talent, but not proven commodities in key positions. So they all return. Well, not Alabama at quarterback, but they've got a 5-star coming in, Bryce Young. But and Clemson, of course. But they got DJ some quality experience here in 2020. I guess. Again, it depends on how losses are rated and vetted out by the committee. Because when you throw out those 4 teams, you got 2 matchups that are inevitable between those 4 teams in the regular season, and that's the Clemson-Georgia game and the Georgia-Alabama SEC championship game. Right.
Well, my thought is that, I think that Clemson could lose to Georgia, and then Clemson could run the rest of the table and still get there as a one-loss ACC champion.
Sure.
I think it could be a lot tougher for Georgia to lose that game. And then, if they get a second loss in the SEC, that would be very, very difficult. So now if they were able to be a two-loss SEC champion, like Auburn would have been in 2017 if they'd have beaten Georgia, they probably get in. It's probably as a two-loss champion would get in. So, I mean, my thought process is I agree with you. I just look at the talent coming back. Georgia's got a fair amount of talent coming back. Clemson's got a quarterback that's got experience. They got a lot of talent back on defense. Same thing with Oklahoma. They got the quarterback back, a lot of talent back on defense. And then I'm just banking on Alabama to reload and be in Atlanta again. My concern with Ohio State is I agree. I just think they're young at some positions. So I think that it could be a little bit like a 17 or an 18 where maybe they get a loss somewhere in the Big Ten, maybe that is, a little surprising that might hold them back.
Yeah.
So just kind of my early feel.
Well, I got to say, David, that the committee has shown us that if they determine that a collection of teams are the best teams in the country, and then there are losses between those teams, but it's self-contained, again, Alabama, Clemson, Georgia play 2 games, that they're not going to penalize one of those teams. If they determine, let's say we get late into the season, and regardless of who won and lost the Georgia-Clemson game, we get to late in the season, and all the teams that you mentioned are undefeated or just have the one loss against each other, and so the losses are contained within that group, the committee will reward and not penalize, might be a better way to phrase it, not penalize the teams that lose the games against the other presumed best teams, as long as they're good games. Now, if Clemson puts a hurting on Georgia in week 1, and that's a 38-17 game, then Georgia's going to have to kind of come from behind and can't afford another loss, most likely.
Right. I agree. Yeah, I mean, I could see a way where, again, they could be a two-loss SEC champion if they stubbed their toe before they got to Atlanta and then won the SEC title, but that would be tough, though. That would be tough. That's why I think it may be even a little bit more important for them to win that first game than Clemson, because Clemson's schedule after the Georgia game is far more doable than Georgia's schedule. So,
yeah.
All right, my friend. Good stuff. Pleasure to talk to you again, Mark.
Yeah, good to hear from you, David. Have a good night.
Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
A good point made here by Jamie Strong is that the last national championship quarterbacks, the last 3 at Ohio State, were with first-year quarterbacks. So that would be 2014, of course, Braxton Miller gets hurt. J.T. Barrett / Cardell Jones in the playoff run. And then 2002, Craig Krenzel. I guess we call him a first-year quarterback in a sense. He gained valuable experience at the end of 2001, filling in for Steve Belisari, who got into some trouble the week of the Illinois game. So Ohio State in 2001, Jim Tressel's first year, played Illinois the week before Michigan. A game they were in position to win, and then Krenzel threw a costly pick 6 in that game. Anyway, they go to Michigan. They win that game, of course, the promised victory from Jim Tressel, and then lose the bowl game to South Carolina with Krenzel. So no, Belisari was back in the lineup for the final game in the Outback Bowl against South Carolina. So Craig Krenzel did get a valuable 1.5 game experience before going into the 2002 season and winning the job as starter. And then you'd have to go all the way back to 1968 and Rex Kern as a sophomore, the super sophomore Ohio State team of 68. Rex Kern, yes, freshmen were not eligible until, I believe, 72. So Rex Kern was a first-year starter and led one of the great Ohio State teams in 68. I'm trying to think of any other first-year quarterbacks who led Ohio State to an elite level. 96, in replacing Bobby Hoying, that would have gone to Stanley Jackson, the Stanley Jackson-Joe Germain combination that led an extremely talented and successful 96 Ohio State team that, of course, won the Big Ten, the Rose Bowl, but literally slipped up against Michigan in 96. Literally, Sean Springs slipped against Ty Streets, and that led to the one touchdown in the game and a 13-9 loss that cost Ohio State the national championship. First year Ohio State starting quarterbacks that excelled. Troy Smith in 05, similar to Krenzel, started the Purdue game and then the Michigan game and was lights out after losing to Purdue in his first start. Was lights out against Michigan. Troy Smith threw for 300, ran for like 150 in that game, something in that range. Had like a 310, 140, like a 450-yard total offense game against Michigan. So Troy Smith going into 05, again, valuable experience in playing against two Big Ten opponents at the end of the year the previous season. Yeah. And then Dwayne Haskins, same deal. First-year starter in 18, got the valuable 3/4 of a game experience at the Big House the year before, then leads a 13-1 Rose Bowl champion in 18. We got the Rod Farba talking about Greg Belisari, number 30, I believe. Greg Belisari, linebacker. But of course, we're talking about Steve. The Rod Farba, good call there. We could go season by season and point out who were first-year quarterback starters at Ohio State who excelled. Todd Beckman, a very curious career at Ohio State. Todd Beckman, in replacing Troy Smith, who won the Heisman in 06, yes, leads Ohio State to a national championship game in 07, has a good season. It's funny that there's been a number of times in which you wouldn't necessarily say that the Ohio State quarterback had a just crazy, outstanding season, but still was good enough to win offensive honors as player of the year in the Big Ten. That was Todd Beckman in 07. Was Todd Beckman really that good in 07? He was okay. He basically didn't have to throw the ball against the team up north in the 07 game that Beanie Wells went off and the defense stifled Chad Henne and company 14-3. They lost the Illinois game, of course. The offense was not prolific in 07. The backs and the wide receivers there were some NFL players there. Brandon Sane played with the Packers and Brian Rubisky, Terry, his father, of course, but Brian Rubisky at wide receiver and Brian Hartline and company. But Beckman, then he leads the team to a BCS championship game. He wins Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, and by game, 3? Really game 2 against USC in 08, when the Buckeyes were getting slaughtered by Pete Carroll and company. He gets benched. That's the career. It's gone. It's done. Terrell Pryor takes over. So pretty much any first-year starting quarterback at Ohio State was successful because the team's been nothing but successful almost all the time. A fun video for me to put together, this was about a year ago, was I basically look at when was the last time said program was down. I went through all the current elite programs, all the traditional blue bloods, all the elites at some point, meaning like a Miami, To me, Miami was elite from the early to mid 80s, pretty much 83 range when they won the national title until 92, 93, 94 in that range. For about 10 years, they were elite, and then they were elite for a brief moment, 01, 02, 03 in that range, 2000 to 03. So Miami's not an elite program right now, but they've been elite. Florida State's not an elite program right now, but they've been elite, etc. So I took everybody that I considered to be elite at some point. And when was the last time that program could be considered down? And to me, you've got to define, when you use a term like that, who's relevant, who's down, who's this, who's that, who's elite. You got to define it. I defined it being down as not seriously competing for a conference championship for at least 3 years. And even though Ohio State's had its stumbles, 6-6 in 99, and the Luke Fickell year in 11, they didn't meet that criteria. You got to go all the way back to the end of Earl Bruce and the beginning of John Cooper. Even in 87, they pretty much seriously contended for the Big Ten championship. They were 5-1-1 going down the stretch. Anyway, they really, and then even though they were down during the early portion of Cooper's tenure, 1989, they were playing Michigan for a share of the Big Ten championship. 1990, they were playing Michigan for an outright Big Ten championship and Rose Bowl appearance. So by my definition, they weren't really down. They were not at this current Urban Meyer, Ryan Day standard. Or were they really down competing for conference championships? So it's been a long time since Ohio State's been down by that definition. Now again, 99, 2001, you're looking at a 3-year run of between Cooper and Tressel, 6-6, 8-4, 7-5. That's down. But there was a coaching transition there. So that might be your last spurt for the Buckeyes of being down. That would be your last spurt. I don't think there's any question. Mike, 3883. Just look at what a team makes a team elite. I'd see if a team has slipped. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State are elite. Georgia's an argument. Oklahoma's an argument. That's how I see it. I don't really see anybody else as an argument. Had LSU followed up 2019 with something this season that was something close to what they had done. But we've got 5 teams in the running. We've got 3 for sure right now. Yes, Nate, we're accepting calls. You got the number down there at the bottom of the screen, 860-325-3687. And actually, I'm going to head on over to the Miami channel in about 50 minutes, and we're going to talk some Miami football over on the Miami channel. Just thought I would show a little love to our team-specific channels. We've got an SEC channel as well, and we will do the same for those folks over there. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's Rod Farber. Mark, how you doing?
Hey, Rod. What's going on?
Hey, it's not too much, man. It's been a while. Good to see you back on. Just got one real quick question for you. This is a topic that I was in a discussion with some friends earlier this weekend, and I was just seeing if you believe that you had your show, about the gap between Ohio State and Alabama, but do you also believe that the gap between Alabama and the rest of the SEC is widening as well?
Yes, with the possible exception of Georgia.
And that's kind of the outlier, but when you kind of look at their results,
You know what I mean? And how they've kind of performed in some of these games recently. That's where I'm kind of on the fence. Because you said, there could be an argument whether or not they're elite. Well, I think what kind of keeps them from being considered elite are these big games that they haven't been winning. They struggled against Cincinnati, and not to discredit Cincinnati, but like on paper, a team like Georgia should handle Cincinnati. They didn't fare well against Kentucky. I know, yeah, granted, Kentucky is a very good defensive team. It was on the road, but they still, a team with a roster like Georgia should be able to handle Kentucky a lot better than that. And then you have LSU having their down year. Auburn, you never really know what you're going to get with them. Texas A&M, Jim Bill's really building a good thing there, but how good were they really last year with all those down teams? The East has their issues, who knows what Florida's going to be this season. They've had a lot of turnover. Granted, they got that huge transfer today with Eric Gilbert, but still, Georgia is the heavy favorite to win the East this year. So I was just wondering, is there, when Alabama just steamrolling through the SEC last season, with the exception of the Florida game, do you think the gap is just widening more and more than what people like to believe?
Well, anytime, all you have to do is look at the recruiting rankings, and if one school, Alabama, is recruiting the best class in the country almost every year, and when they're not, it's number 2, then everybody else that's recruiting in LSU and Florida's case, in particular Texas A&M, they're recruiting the 5th, 7th, 9th best classes in the country. Then by that measurement, yes, they're falling further behind. I'm curious, though, about Georgia. Let's look at this with Georgia. So Georgia, in Kirby Smart's second year, won the SEC, went to the national championship game, and except for completing the deal, you can't get much more elite than coming within, a whisker of winning the national title. So that's where they were in 17. Okay. And it was only one season, but they backed it up to a certain extent since. So in 18, they go to the SEC championship game. They lose a great game against Alabama. They lose the Sugar Bowl. They finish in the top 6 or 7 in the country. 2019, they lose the SEC championship game to LSU, win the Sugar Bowl, finish in the top 6 or 7 in the country. This past season, as you mentioned, they beat Cincinnati. Wasn't impressive. They finished 8-2. They finished in the top 6 or 7 in the country. So you go to a national title game that you should have won. You lost. You go to overtime against the gold standard, Alabama. Then you follow that up with 3 seasons in which you don't win the SEC, but you get to the championship game 2 of the 3 years, and you finish in the top 6 or 7 in the country. When you say they're losing the big games, yeah, they're losing SEC championship games in 18 and 19 and losing to Florida this year and Alabama.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to get at too is, when you look at their roster on paper, obviously they're clearly elite. The recruiting rankings don't lie, but when they're not beating, the standard, which is Alabama, but then you see programs like LSU able to beat Alabama here and there. They got 3 national titles since 2003. You have Auburn, they won a national title and played for a second one within 3 years of each other. But they're not considered elite, you know what I mean? So what is it what do you think it is that's preventing Georgia from getting over that hump and not really being able to beat Alabama? Do you think there's a coaching gap? Do you think they're not making the right hires? It just seems like, a roster like that, they should be every bit as dominant as Alabama, and I just don't understand why they're not.
I think it's a combination of 3 things. I think there's a coaching gap. I think there's a quarterback issue and a slightly outdated offense. I think there's some combination of those 3 things. Now, and when I say that, I believe that Ryan Day and his staff got out-coached in the national championship game. And that's not a knock against Ryan Day. I think Ryan Day's a phenomenal football coach. But just like teams can get outplayed, great teams can get outplayed, I think he got a little bit schooled and out-coached in that game. he and his staff. I think Kirby Smart's doing a fabulous job, of course, as a recruiter. As a game coach, as a developer of talent, I think he's doing a decent job, not a great job. And he has chosen basically two quarterbacks. He's basically chosen Jake Fromm, who was a good college quarterback, not a great one, good one. And then he made this decision this year, which was a poor decision again, and that's been his undoing.
So would you say then the gap in the SEC is more of a coaching gap as opposed to like an overall perception of the program gap?
Between those two,
obviously,
between those two teams, yes, because Georgia has maybe not man for man, step for step, exactly the Alabama talent, but good enough to beat Alabama on the roster.
Right, and then when you see all these coaches in the SEC also just dropping like flies because the expectation has become you got to beat Alabama, but nobody seems to be able to beat Alabama. It's almost like the unfair, expectation at Michigan, to be compared to Ohio State. Well, you can't really compare Michigan to Ohio State anymore these days.
No.
Because there's a considerable gap between the two. And I think that's what's happening in the SEC is that there's the gap between Alabama and everyone else is widening. I don't think there's so much a talent gap because obviously if you look at not just the recruiting rankings, but the NFL draft results, there's definitely not a talent gap, but like there's a clear coaching gap. And Saban is getting all these who at one time were very respectable, good coaches, and they're getting these guys fired. And now you're bringing these guys who may be a little in over their heads, and I think it's going to create even a larger gap in the conference. And I don't know. I don't know if that's really good for the sport or if it's just more of a testimony of just how elite and incredible Nick Saban is.
So I understand your point about Saban versus the other coaches and making them look bad, but is Nick Saban really getting them fired? Like, did Gus Malzahn get fired because he went 3-5 against Nick Saban? That's actually to his credit. He's lost 4 to 5 games every year he's been there, except for 2013, his first year. Les Miles started losing 3 and 4 games every year after going to the BCS championship in 11. He went 8-4, 9-3 every year. So I think those coaches are getting fired because they're losing other games that they shouldn't be losing, as opposed to losing to Nick Saban.
Yeah, I agree with that too. But I guess the way I was trying to say with Nick Saban is, win the SEC, and you really can't do that without beating him. But yeah, and then I think that also kind of creates some movement in the recruiting. It's like, okay, well, this program can't really, so I'm going to kind of go here. Either go to Alabama or go here to have a better shot to beat Alabama. And that may be kind of a stretch, but, I don't know. I think, I guess I'm just trying to say is I just notice a gap widening more because especially when I see the results and the scores of what Alabama did last year. Now, granted, that was an all-time historic great team. But when you look at the rosters of the great players of the teams they beat, regardless of what the records were, it kind of gives a little bit of leeway at the end of the COVID year, just how they just destroyed everything in their path. I just see a gap just widening between Alabama and really the rest of the country. I mean, and that includes the entire SEC. So, but that's all I had, Mark. Always good to talk to you. Always good to have you on, and let's talk to you soon.
Appreciate that. Have a good night, man.
All right, Flash. See ya.
Good stuff, as always, from the Rod Farba. Supplies was with some tremendous comments in the live chat. Invite everybody in. We've got about 20 on the line. Didn't expect a huge crowd. This is the first time we've ever done an Ohio State calling show on our Ohio State channel. We're just under 2,000 subs, so we would expect you, if you're an Ohio State fan and would just want to lock in on the Buckeyes, to subscribe right here. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Nate, the depressed Wolverine fan. How you doing, sir?
Oh, my goodness. Nate, we got to do something about that. We don't want you to be depressed.
Yeah, I mean, I will change it at some point if Michigan is on a roll, like a win streak. I will change it at some point. So
Nate, it would be great. It would be great if you would change it prior to you waiting for Michigan to be on a roll. That might be a while.
Yeah.
What do we consider a roll?
Like a win streak. If Michigan or Nebraska, it's on a 8-win streak, I figured out. But for example, I'll change it to I don't know what word, but it will be it'll be somewhere. I don't know what word yet, but
Nate, something tells me that you're going to have time to work on that.
Yeah, I will. But anyway, I was going to talk about 3 things if you want, if I can. One is do you follow some NFL news or no?
I do follow the NFL. I am going to say this, Nate, that
okay.
We will take whatever questions or comments that you have, whether they be pro or college football. But this is an Ohio State calling show.
Okay.
But go ahead, fire off your questions or comments.
What do you think about the Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff trade?
I didn't even hear that Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff were involved in a trade. I haven't really looked at anything since
Oh, that's all right.
I haven't looked at anything in pro or college football since I had a flight early Thursday morning, and I've not seen anything. I've been taking some time off, and I've not looked at anything in 3 days. So wait a minute. You're telling me that Matthew Stafford got traded from the Lions to the Rams for Jared Goff?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think you're trading elite talent for youth. So the plus in getting Goff is obviously he's only played 3 years. Stafford's played 10 or 11, something like that. Maybe not quite that long. What was his first year? 2011-ish?
Yeah.
12. But I think that myself, I believe Matthew Stafford's a better quarterback than Jared Goff.
Yeah, I know my dad's a Lions fan, to be honest, but he says I asked him do you think the Lions could make Super Bowl? He said no, never. But I don't know if that's true or not. Might be, I don't know.
Well, the folks,
is,
Nate, just to finish off this part of the conversation, the folks in the chat are telling us that the Lions got 2 first-round picks as well. Now that changes the trade.
I mentioned that.
I'll take Stafford over Goff any day, but there is an age consideration there. You're going to have Goff for longer than Stafford, all things being equal, unless there's an injury involved. But 2 first-round picks, that's valuable.
So is that good or bad?
It's good for your Lions.
Okay. I don't understand the trade and draft things, but I know the trade players though. But my second question was there's a Michigan question too. But what do you think what is it called? What is the defensive coordinator called for Michigan now? Ryan Dow?
Mike McDonald from the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah. Do you think? I don't think he will be good at first, but with all of Jim Harbaugh's new staff, which is young, what do you think about them developing players? Do you think it will change or just be the same?
Well, that's the concern, Nate, is that they went heavy on guys that are good recruiters that may not be great at developing talent. And they went with a lot of young coaches. Now, I think there's something to be said for not just hiring coaches in terms of hiring them in a vacuum, but understanding that they all fit together as a group. They all fit together as a team, the coaching staff. And you have to coach. You need good cops and bad cops, and you need strong personalities and maybe guys that are a little bit less fiery, and you need guys that are that are more experienced to guide the younger coaches, and maybe younger coaches that are going to have a little bit more fire on the recruiting trail and maybe relate to the players better. I think it's good to have a combination typically there. Michigan's going rather youthful.
Oh, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I mean, I just hope they not just Jim Harbaugh, but the other coaching staff can develop players. But I would say Jim Harbaugh needed some help with the coaching staff. What do you think about that?
I'm sorry, what was that about Harbaugh and the coaching staff?
I said Jim Harbaugh needed some help with coaches, like coordinators and stuff. What I meant was Jim Harbaugh needed some help on offense and defense and stuff. That's my question, but I mean that's my I don't know. Moving on with the third question, is Scott Frost on the hot seat?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe he's on the hot seat. He can't continue to lose, but I will say that if Scott Frost does not have a winning season, a bowl appearance, that type of season, at least 7-5, that he will be in a bad position in 2022. We'll put him on the hot seat for 22.
Yeah. Yeah, Mark. Yeah, that's all I want to ask. But if you go do call in again, I'll call in again.
Awesome, Nate. Appreciate hearing from you. Have a good one.
You too.
Nate the Great, now Nate the Depressed. That's a free fall right there. When you go from the Great, Nate the Great, to Nate the Depressed. That would be like me going from the voice of college football to the voiceless, something like that. The Rod Favre back to college is Michigan. If Michigan moves on from Harbaugh, which, based on the way they stated this contract announcement, they are hell-bent on we're a championship outfit here. Jim Harbaugh is the guy to deliver championships. I don't know what range they're thinking, what time range, how much time they're going to give him. They better give him more than 21, or he is going to be gone after one season, because that team is not winning a championship this year.
The call will start at the beep.
But Matt Campbell, yeah. Matt Campbell should be Michigan's guy. I don't know if Michigan is Matt Campbell's destination. He's gotten himself into such a good place in terms of his reputation that I don't want to say he's better than Michigan. That's an elevated job. That's a top 10 job. But if he doesn't think it's a good place to recruit or compete, then he can continue to wait for his big chance. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Good evening, Mark. This is Kevin, Dallas, Georgia. How you doing?
Hey, Kevin. I'm doing well. What's going on tonight?
Well, just wanted, as far as a couple of, as far as conversations that was brought up this evening, one was in reference to Tennessee, and then also the previous caller, I guess, a little bit as far as Michigan. And I was wondering what was the status of Josh Gad Gaddis as far as Michigan?
That's funny you asked that, because there's been speculation that he wasn't going to keep his job, but I have 3 Michigan guys I trust. They all have fairly large media platforms and have contact with a lot of people, and one of them works for Rivals, and there wasn't any kind of confirmation that he was going to be around. And there was something online, and I'm trying to think what that was, that would indicate that he was on a little shaky ground. I'm trying to think exactly what that was. We talked about it in one of our videos, but it's already the first week of February here, and he still has a job, and I think he's still going to be the offensive coordinator this year.
And the reason why I asked Mark was just simply, he cut his teeth as far as at the University of Alabama.
Yep.
And he was there for like a New York second, and then boom, and I guess it was just a matter of, just plain and simple, if you have an opportunity, it's all, as far as every business is about bettering your situation. So, I mean, you can go from somewhere being, quote, a on-field coach to an OC, which, as far as it wasn't in the tea leaves as far as University of Alabama, him being a offensive coordinator, that, hey, that was the selling point as far as Harbaugh getting him there. Mr. Gaddis is blessed as far as the gift of gab. He was because initially Daxton Hill was committed to the University of Alabama. Gaddis went to Michigan. Hill flipped to Michigan. So, I mean, his strength, his forte is recruiting. So, as far as for Harbaugh to get rid of him anytime, really the next, I would say at the latest that he could possibly get rid of him would have to be at the conclusion of the season, because he was pretty much, I'm not saying pretty much nothing, Mark, he was the selling point in getting Xavier Worthy coming from the West Coast to Ann Arbor.
And that's another tricky point to all this with these assistant coaches during this time, and who's going to stay and who's going to get fired is how much goodwill do you want to have with these players you just signed, because many of them signed because of their relationship that had been built with the position coach.
Yeah, exactly. And going back as far as Ohio State for a minute, Mark, this season is going to be interesting in reference to the Buckeyes, and I'm not going to look on the defensive side of the ball, but as far as that quarterback, because Ohio State, more than any other team in the country, is blessed as far as having just too much depth, if that's such a thing, at the quarterback position. And I think that as far as, regardless whether it's Stroud or whether it's a freshman McCord or whether it's Miller, whichever one of those, I'm not going to really just say whichever one of those gentlemen don't win the job. But as far as, Mark, wouldn't it be safe to say that it's a strong possibility that there will be 2 quarterbacks going into the transfer portal? Because once a decision is made as far as the starting quarterback, then the next person that's going to come, the next person up will be Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, because we got Ewers coming. We got 3 elite quarterbacks already in the room. We bring in Ewers, and let's say Stroud wins the job as expected this year, and he has a good season, and he's in line to win it again next year. There's going to be, considering if everything is true, and it should be about how good Ewers is, that somebody's going to be that third quarterback. This would be the most likely guy to transfer, would be the guy that's the number 3 guy this year, then going into 2022. I would think that he would feel, okay, I'm number 3 right now, and Ewers is on his way. I'm not in a good place.
Now, if I just had to take a guess, Mark, I would say that the third man would be a true freshman, Kyle McCord. So, do you think that they could talk McCord into not transferring and going and just, compete as far as with the young man from Texas that will be a incoming freshman in 22? And so that would, because I know that Day has always been the proponent of having 4 quarterbacks in the quarterback room.
Mm-hmm.
So that would give him whoever's the starter plus McCord plus Quinn.
So do I believe that Ryan Day is going to be successful in keeping him in Columbus?
Well, as far as if you had to go with, say, if Miller transfers,
yep,
McCord is already in the boat as far as the class of 21.
Yeah.
And then as far as the kid from Texas will be in the class of 22.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking as far as Day has always been a 4 quarterback person, but I don't see anywhere in the world he's going to be able to keep 4 quarterbacks. So I'm just thinking more so as in whoever wins between the 3 that's on campus now, and then as far as McCord coming in, and then also the kid coming in as far as 22. So you have your starting quarterback, McCord coming in, and then Ewers. So that would give you at least 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, it seems crazy to think that any school can keep 4 elite level quarterbacks. Even 3 is difficult. Georgia had a situation this year where they had at one point, before Jamie Newman opted out, they had 3 high 4-star, 5-star guys, and that seemed like a crowded room at that point.
Most definitely, most definitely. And lastly, Marcus, in reference to the Tennessee situation, the biggest, rumor in the end, though, was that they were going to try to, go after Free, which I thought would not have been as far as if you want to go by what he can do on the field and in recruiting, that would have been a home run hire.
Yep.
But it's just that the baggage, the thing is that you can say whatever you want to say about the SEC as far as, some have said as far as how dirty it is and the other conferences having just surface dirt, for lack of a better way to say it. But, when it comes to what they're trying to do is to clean up. So, you can't say as far as, okay, you're giving money away in McDonald's bags as far as the University of Tennessee, but then you had a person who, had to show cause not only as far as what he did as far as recruiting, but some other things in your personal life, which, Tennessee really didn't need that right now. Really, it would have to be a generation down the line before they could have that as far as even entertain that. But there's one person I hope that they don't lose, Mark, and I think that they will. The guy from my hometown, which, he did something that has never been done as far as at the University of Tennessee, and that's T. Martin. As far as, leading them to the national championship, he's a part of the staff now. And as of this week, he really didn't know what his status was with the program. And you're talking about someone who, his heart, bleeds orange. And by that being the case and not even being considered for the head coaching job, I just hope they don't lose him. But he would definitely be an asset as far as to, I would think that any other school in the conference would jump on him quick, fast, in a hurry. But, I do know that he's loyal to the program. But as far as how they handled it, I don't think they handled it in the right way.
No, you definitely have some good points concerning that situation. And yeah, if Tennessee was just a team that was in a program underachieving without the mess involved with the NCAA, then Hugh Freeze is a more viable candidate. But they just didn't want to deal with the perception of what he brings with him or could bring with him. We're talking about a school that initially went with Greg Schiano and then changed his mind based on public opinion and based on some loud voices on social media that they changed their mind. They listened to social media and let social media determine that they weren't going to hire a head coach. So they certainly weren't going to be the program that was going to step out and say, we believe Hugh Freeze has changed. We believe we're going to put him under certain safeguards to ensure that he's a reformed head coach and he's the right guy for the job and we're going forward. No, they just didn't want to deal with that. So they didn't go there.
Well, along those lines,
Yep.
Pardon me, Mark, along those lines, look at as far as who is the commissioner of the conference. And the one thing when it comes to the SEC commissioners, they've only had 2, and both of them have been strong commissioners. because
Yep.
full disclosure. I mean, hey, my heart bleeds crimson, and when it comes to the University of Alabama, Saban wanted to hire Freeze as an analyst several years ago, but Sankey wouldn't sign off on it.
Yeah.
So I mean, if the University of Alabama couldn't get him to be an analyst, I'm kind of just in the since you were talking, it just made me think that hey, Sankey probably would not sign off on him being a coach in the conference anymore.
Yeah, those phone calls can be made. Certainly, where Greg Sankey would say, this is not a look that we want, especially considering where you've been here and what kind of mess you're in. We don't need that. We don't want that. For sure.
Well, as always, Mark, pleasure to speak with you. Hey, enjoy your content. Hey, keep doing what you're doing, and hey, look forward to speaking with you again.
Appreciate that, Kevin. Have a good night.
All right, same time.
All right, we are 18 minutes away from firing up another live stream, this on the Miami channel. So this is the first time we fired up a live stream here at the Ohio State channel, and this is one of the reasons why. So we do an Ohio State Buckeyes live show every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern time, and we'll be back Wednesday, 2 o'clock Eastern. Again, lock it in over on the main channel. Okay, we take segments of that show. So let's say we talked about recruiting and quarterback battle and the linebackers, and we talked about Ryan Day, and we talked about this and that. I edit those, and we post those on this channel to provide you with just Ohio State content here. But to provide additional content that's unique to this channel, we are going to do this with the other channels now that we're over 1,000 subs, and that's a key figure on YouTube, and we're actually just under 2,000 subs here. Just wanted to fire up a live stream to answer questions. It was my intent to actually go through the comments section of the various videos posted here, but it's a good thing when we get so much traffic in the live chat and we get your phone calls that it takes me away from the actual comments of the videos. But that was my intent, to answer the comments from the viewers that posted to the videos. So again, if you love Ohio State football, lock it in here and check out the videos that we provide. And over on the main channel, if you are just watching Ohio State football with us here, and checking out the videos on the Buckeyes on this channel, but you love college football across the board, you are missing out. Go to the Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers TV, and go to our main channel. And I won't even go through all the content that we've provided this week, even though we have stepped away for a few days that we've provided this week, but it's always a ton. On National Day, I am going to have so many live streams going, and they're going to be brief live streams. So you're going to have to stay on the main page, please, on the main channel. You got to stay on the main page. I would stay live all day, but I want the videos to post as team-specific videos. My goodness, we've already got North Carolina, Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, UCLA, and others lined up. TCU, team reports from teams all over the place. Again, National Signing Day, not what it used to be. The February version, about 90% of the players are already signed, already good to go. But we do want to catch up with those players that are still unsigned and leave you with a full team report on as many teams as we can possibly get to. And we'll talk beyond National Signing Day, because National Signing Day isn't going to be enough to keep us locked in. But we're going to talk all those teams on a Wednesday. Then we're going to be live at 8 o'clock Eastern Wednesday night to take your calls. All right. I hope to make it back. I hope to make it back because I'm hearing about high winds and a lot of snow blowing through the Midwest toward the Northeast. So we've got a flight through Charlotte back to Connecticut. Hopefully not going to be too dicey for me. Alabama football fan, roll tide. Mark is the best in the business, no doubt. Hit the like button. Yes, that is very important. Please hit the like button. Also, please share the videos on social media. Consider this. If you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook, the people that connect with you on Twitter and Facebook and other platforms, most likely, they don't know that we're here talking college football. So please share the videos on social media. That is one gigantic way you can help us. And of course, you can contribute. This channel, this specific Ohio State channel, and then also, especially the main channel, and all the shows that we do and all the content we provide will continue to excel based on your individual contributions and based on sponsorships. So I will get on that. I'm not a salesman, but I'm going to have to be. So we will get sponsorships hopefully here and over on the main channel soon because they are needed. So if you have any connections to potential sponsors or you yourself own a business that could benefit from sponsoring content on any of our channels, especially the main channel, but any of the channels, then please hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. You can always hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Lightly snowing in Dayton. So this is, let's see, so this is Sunday night. And I'm going to be in the air in about what? In about 18 hours, 18 to 19 hours. Next call-in show, the Rat Farva. So I wanted to hit some of these sub-channels, team-specific channels tonight. So we're here talking Ohio State football. Miami's next in 11 minutes. We'll be over on the Miami channel, the Rat Farva. 11 minutes, Miami channel. Yeah, Jamie, it's not so much I'm concerned about the heavy snow. If I was locked in on the home front, but I'm traveling. So could be a problem. Could be stuck somewhere for a while. I hope not. "100 years of Buckeyes football." I believe I've got that. I do have that. And then we've got, I know David is really high on this 2005 playoff scenario with a four-teamer, USC, Texas, Ohio State, Penn State. I don't know if Ohio State would definitely be the 4 seed there. Don't know if there would have been anybody else that possibly could have nudged out the Buckeyes. Notre Dame. Ohio State 9-2, Notre Dame 9-2 in 2005. Who else did we have in 2005? Let's look at the final poll, or the. Don't want to look at the final poll. We don't like to look at the final regular season poll. So, looking at the final poll, I want to see records here. Shoot, I'm not showing me records. CollegeFootballReference.com is a phenomenal site, but why would they show me a poll without showing me the records of the teams. That's lousy. It's not the way to do that. Awful. Okay. I think this is no good. Okay. Let's go to Wikipedia. Let's look at this, David, because there might have been an issue with trying to choose who would have made the playoff here. So going into, so consider this, David. Yeah, USC and Texas, 12-0, 12-0. Penn State, 10-1. I don't know. You've got Oregon also 10-1. West Virginia was 10-1 in a weak conference, but still 10-1. You had Ohio State, Notre Dame, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, Miami of Florida, LSU, Virginia Tech, Alabama, Louisville, UCLA, Texas Tech. All those teams were 9-2 or 10-2. Now, TCU was a group of 5 then at 10-1, so they would not have been considered. But I guess Ohio State was number 4 in the country. I get that they would have been the most likely to be selected in the 4th position. But you talk about, again, just more fodder for me to tell and to get on my soapbox about playoffs, real playoffs. 2005, a mess. If there would have been a 14 playoff, it would have been a disaster. A disaster. 2005 would have been atrocious. How do you choose the 4th team? How do you choose the 4th team in 2005? Okay. You need a system. That's what you need. And so under my system, Ohio State would have made it, well, maybe as a wild card, maybe not. Because Penn State won the Big Ten. All right, good to see everybody on here. Again, if you want to keep talking college football, and head over to the Miami channel. We're going to fire that up in just a few minutes and hopefully talk some Miami football with a number of people. I can't be too concerned with, I think we tapped out about 20 on the line. It wasn't a big crowd. Nobody knew we were going to come here. I just sent out the notification not that long ago. I appreciate all of you. And the best way to approach this would be to do this on a weekly basis. So we will figure that out very soon, but it was great to have everybody on here. And again, we're going to talk some Miami football here in just a few minutes over on the Miami channel and hope to see you there. If not, National Signing Day is going to be huge. We'll be all over it. We'll be going live all day and all night, and specifically talking Ohio State football for you Buckeye fans at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, live on Wednesday. Great to see you. Again, you got a sponsorship connection, hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App as well. We appreciate the contributions and see you soon.